Hello everyone, I am Tessellating Hexagons, and hey, we've reached the halfway point of the first Super Saturday of 2018. 5 countries picked their songs, and number 3 was Ukraine with the final of Vidbir 2018. I'm not a big fan of the name, but I really can't tell you why. In any case, after, well, I'm assuming it was a good show. I did see a brief recap of all the entries and they all sounded good. I heard that there was quite a bit of popularity between the song that won and one of the songs that didn't win, both of which are highly celebrated artists from last year's national selection as well. The eventual winner, though, was Konstantin Nikolaevich Bocharov, or just Mélovin, which is a lot easier to say, and the song Under the Ladder, which is presented completely in English, music by Mélovin himself and Anton Karski, and lyrics by Mike Riles, you saw it on screen. So how do I feel about this one then? Well, in a word, wow. The first Super Saturday of 2018 seems to be all about songs that grab you by the lapels and shake you silly as their first impression. That was a really camp gesture and I make no apologies for it. And Ukraine is the 3rd song in a row that's keeping up that pattern. I knew, as I said, that this was one of the popular ones in the national final. I think #MellowWin was a thing for a while. I don't know, I'm just going on what other people have told me. But I hadn't heard this song at all until I listened to it after it was chosen, and just wow. I certainly think it's much too early to say for certain how well this will do at Eurovision, but for the energy it brings to the table, I would say a top 15 finish at least wouldn't surprise me. So yeah, it left a definite strong first impression, and that's got to count for something, right? Well, let's dissect this one a little and see what makes this Ukrainian entry go tick-tock. Haha, it's funny because TikTok was the first entry I ever reviewed, and that was 2014, and that was Ukraine. Haha, let's just get on with the review, shall we? So then, what might you like? Well, first off, and this was true of O Torvald last year as well, so it may be subject to change, but Mélovin's performance at Vidbir was very striking indeed. Whereas O Torvald had something of a narrative with their post-apocalyptic landscape and the countdown clocks embedded in their chests, Mélovin's stage world is a lot more abstract, I'll give him that, but it's just as impactful. It's dark, it's got shades of red to keep things lit up. That's the main colour scheme here, black and red. And then the whole thing catches fire for the final refrain while he's off the ground at the piano. That's just the icing on the cake. The whole thing is really dramatic and really impressive, to be quite honest. Of course, keep in mind, as I said, that may be subject to change when it reaches the stage in Lisbon, because, you know, last year, O Torvald went from those countdown clocks to a giant head. Anything could happen between now and May, so this is one to keep an eye on, I think. On par with its visual presence at the moment, though, is the whole soundscape of this entry. It's rich, it's engaging, it's diverse. I won't say it's constantly changing, but there is a lot going on in a good way. It doesn't sound crazy, it just sounds varied. The song sets a pace for itself, and it never falters. I mean, yeah, there is a point where the whole song slows down and kind of falls apart, like, I won't say like an Easter egg, no, more like a Matryoshka doll, which I feel like is probably a really insensitive thing to compare a Ukrainian entry to, but there's a point where the song sort of unfolds and slows down, and that is handled masterfully. It's a delight to watch as a whole, it's a delight to listen to. Every part of the song hits every note, so to speak, in a really impressive way. And a vital element to all of that is Mélovin himself, and his utterly charismatic stage presence. That's the word I keep coming back to, charisma. He looks so serious, but just the right kind of serious that matches the song. He doesn't look like he's taking it too super seriously, but also he's being serious without being risible. You can't laugh at him for his seriousness because it matches the song down to the ground. He commands the stage enviably, he hits all the right notes as good as in the studio. He's got the confidence, in short, that a Eurovision candidate needs. Basically, he's a singer and a performer that Ukraine can be proud of to have as their Eurovision representative, and I have not been paid to say any of this, I was just impressed by what I saw. And so, his performance, playing off his staging, and his not just run-of-the-mill instrumentation makes the song really rather spectacular and memorable. I think it's the vocalizations that really seal the deal on that, but the whole package is a spectacle. It's memorable, really. The red spiral staircase thing in the background, which is subject to change, the sea of fire, also subject to change, his heterochromia, not subject to change, because as far as I know that's just how his eyes are, and it looks cool. It really is something as an experience that stays with you. And in the second semi-final especially, I think that will pay dividends for Ukraine, because semi-final 2 is shaping up to be really competitive, and this is one of the reasons for that. Still, despite all of this glowing praise, there is no such thing as a perfect song, so let's look at the other side to this entry. Really, after some deep thought, the main critiques I came up with all pertain to the lyrics and the delivery of them in some way or another. Firstly, Mélovin's diction is somewhat indistinct, in all fairness, especially live with the backing singer so close to his volume level. It is rather difficult to keep up with what he's saying in some places, if I'm quite honest. On my first couple of listens, I could only catch about half of the song altogether in terms of understanding the words. Make no mistake, I liked what I'd heard, but the individual words are still unclear in quite a few places. Like, if I'm reading the lyrics as he sings them, I can understand it then, but without that help, I'm sort of having trouble following it personally. Still, even if you factor that out of the equation entirely, the lyrics on the whole are, well, I put ambitious in my notes, and I'm not trying to be overly polite but still criticize. They're not contrived, mostly, and the message is something relatively new. It's about success in the face of multiple failures, or so I've been told, and I appreciate that. But there are some parts where the whole idea of it sort of goes off the deep end into metaphor territory, or the opposite. One of the clearest lines in the refrain is, "You can see that whatever the weather," and I'm just going to stop right there. That seems somewhere between cliche and hyper-whimsical for a song like this. I mean, it works in context, but it seems a little bit weak compared to the rest of the song. So, that might just be me. I mean, Russia came third with a song that contains thunder and lightning. It's getting exciting in the past, so it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. Still, on a much more subjective note, you might not like that half of the chorus is just vocalizations. For some, that'll be a stylistic choice that they can appreciate. For some, that'll be, oh, he ran out of lyrics. So, he gets through some lines of actual quality that you may or may not question, and then the rest is just, it's just, oh. You might think, as I said, that sounds like he couldn't think of anything else to say in the chorus, but he needed to fill time. I would say that his vocalizations add memorability to the song, but I see where you're coming from if you think it's a bit underwhelming for the refrain to just lapse into that halfway through. Whether it's a good or bad thing is entirely up to your tastes, really. As for how I feel, meanwhile, on my probably not so famous ratings out of 10, I wasn't expecting this to happen, but I'll give this a personal score of 10. The key word that I keep coming back to, mentally, as I already said, is charisma. With his flair and panache, Mélovin's delivery of what is, in my opinion, a very interestingly composed song with a good variety of instrumentation to it, has got me completely hooked. I'm quite happy to fall for this one. Sure, I'm struggling to keep up with some of the words, but I see why this one was so popular in the national final. He utterly owns the stage. The instrumentation of the song, as I said, has plenty of variety to it without sounding like a mess of instruments. It's got a strong identity, the staging, just the everything. No, yeah, I'm sold on this one. But I will try not to let that impact my technical rating. In this case, I will award it a technical 9. For all the good that this song does on paper, and for as impressive as the live delivery is, I do have to pull him up at least a little bit on the clarity of his singing voice. Of course, as a non-native speaker of English, he shouldn't be expected to speak with perfect English received pronunciation like I do. So it's fair enough. But when it gets in the way of understanding his lyrics, that, as a musical artist, does present a little bit of a problem. Still, if he can put together a stage show as captivating as he did for the national final, if he can transfer that to the stage in Lisbon, make it bigger, better, or just keep it as it is, I think that would work just as well. I think he'll have no trouble working on his singing voice in the meantime, because he can hit the notes, it's just a matter of hitting the words, and he does a good enough job of that already. Like, as it is, it's a strong, more than passing grade, but if he can push that extra distance, it will make the song shine even more brightly. But my thoughts on the song itself aside, do I think this is a good move for Ukraine? I would say it's a modest positive step. Ukraine's onto something good with the vidbeer format, even if the results didn't turn out especially favourably for them last year. I mean, I say that, I did actually pick up the phone and vote for O Torvald in last year's final, so hey, I keep mentioning them in this review, so clearly the format did something right. Clearly an impact was left. So it's good that they've kept this format going for this year. That should mean that it's a neutral move in a good place. But the song that ended up winning is much more broadly accessible than Time. It's more chart-ready to the mainstream masses. So, really? Ukraine's in sort of the same position as Slovenia this year. They're going from strength to strength, with a tightening focus on what's already a really good national final format, and they've picked an even better winner than last time. Good show there. You're doing great, Ukraine. I believe in you. All of that being said though, can we expect to see Mélovin in this year's final? I mean, Ukraine has never failed to qualify in every year that they've attempted. I mean, sure, they missed the final in 2015, but that's because they weren't taking part. Other than that, Ukraine's been in the final one way or another every year, and with this standard of song, I honestly don't see that shifting anytime soon. Maybe if Melovin's performance isn't up to scratch on the night, it might be a shock non-qualifier, but frankly, I think this is one of very few basically safe qualifiers this year, but he shouldn't get complacent. There is a chance, maybe. I think this will appeal to the public and the jury in its own way, so it should be safe, but this is Eurovision. Anything can happen, so, you know, if he's not full of himself, I think things will go just fine for Ukraine. But for now, I have been, and will continue to be, Tessellating Hexagons, and Mélovin and team, and just Team Ukraine in general, I wish you the very best of luck for when you reach the stage in May. See you in Lisbon.